You're tuned to Mountain States Policy Center. In the fight for limited government, conservative free market solutions and ideas that work for everyone. We take a back seat to no one. It's time for Peak Policy from Mountain States Policy Center.
And welcome everyone to Peak Policy at Mountain States Policy Center. I'm Chris Cargill, joined today by State Representative Wendy Horman of Idaho Falls. And we will get to our conversation with Representative Horman in just a couple of minutes. Just a couple of quick reminders. If you're not aware of what Mountain States Policy Center is all about, we're a free market independent think tank. So if you've heard of groups like the Heritage Foundation or the American Enterprise Institute, those are national organizations. We are a free market think tank that's based right here in Idaho and across the Mountain States to cover public policy and get information not only to citizens and the media, but also to our elected officials as well. If you want to learn more about Mountain States Policy Center, go to mountainstatespolicy.org. You can get signed up for our email list there and find out a lot of information about the organization and see some of our research as well. As I mentioned before, we are very pleased today to have Representative Wendy Horman with us. Representative, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Great to be with you.
Well, as I've done with some of the other interviews that we've completed here and are on our Facebook channel and LinkedIn and Twitter and YouTube, we're broadcasting across all those platforms today. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about what an organization like Mountain States Policy Center will mean to you as a legislator. It was interesting that State Senator Mary Souza was in Coeur d'Alene a couple of weeks ago with us, and she was talking about the fact that, look, the Idaho State Legislature in particular doesn't necessarily have a huge staff that can research things, and so it will be important to have an organization like Mountain States Policy Center.
I didn't hear that interview. I missed that one apparently, but she's exactly right. We have one of the hardest working staffs, I think, in the nation. And I have interacted a bit with other states, but they are small, and one of the smallest in the nation, in fact. And so, it's sometimes we just have to look to external independent sources for information. And so that's one of the reasons I'm really excited to have your organization in the space. Idaho, one of our other weaknesses, frankly, is our lack of really good public-facing data systems. And we've made some strides in that area recently. If you go to the legislature's website, you'll see up on kind of the top right, there's some red letters that say Revenue Details Dashboard. So we're making progress inside of legislative services about getting some interactive data out there for citizens as well as for policymakers. I mean, when I need education data, the best place to go, frankly, is Idaho Education News. They have great data where you can go in and check on how your district's doing, compare schools in your area to what they're spending and those sorts of things. So until we can get our data systems really up to speed, organizations like yours especially can make a really profound difference.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's been remarkable the reaction we've received from legislators all across the political spectrum who really believe the same thing that you just said, Representative Horman, that there are important things that the legislature has to have their fingers on, obviously, and that data is critically important as well. So we are pleased to be able to be in the arena with you and being able to give some information and analysis and our thoughts and opinions on what's happening at the state legislative level as well. As you know, the legislature just completed its special or extraordinary session about a month ago, and there was some pluses and minuses to how that all worked out. And of course, we'll talk about perhaps the minuses here in a minute or so. But I wanted to get your opinion, your thoughts on how you thought it went and kind of the overall action that the legislature took in that session.
Yeah, great conversation. The bill that came forward, I think everyone had something to love in it and something to hate. And but ultimately, as a policymaker, you don't get to vote maybe. You have to decide if you're a 51% yes or a 51% no, or maybe you're a 75% yes, but you don't like 25% of it. So there was a lot of healthy debate on the floor. I think that's our process, and it's, I don't ever resent people, taking positions like that. It's how the process is supposed to work. So ultimately I voted yes on that bill. The 3% automatic increase was removed in terms of the education funding, which I thought was really critical as we move into potentially recessionary times. Some think we're already there. I think we're certainly seeing early signs, if not already in the space. And so putting an automatic inflator in there just didn't make sense, compounded with issues like declining birth rate. Even the state board's own report on that out not too long ago notes that decline in student enrollment, and will be slower than the rest of the nation, to be sure. We have larger families here and we have a lot of in-migration, but nonetheless, decline is still the operative word. And so we need to take those factors into consideration. But overall, like I said, I voted yes. The tax cuts were great. The flat tax was awesome. And I do think we can find ways to use the money that was invested in both K-12 and in-demand careers in ways that will, I hope, bring a strong return on investment.
Yeah, certainly. Some of the hopes from the last legislative session here on Peak Policy, as we talk with State Representative Wendy Horman of the Idaho Falls area. Representative, one of the critical parts of that was, from our perspective, as you mentioned, of that special session, was turning the income tax into a flat tax, getting it to 5.8%. I wrote on our blog that I thought that was the biggest untold story of that legislative session, the very short legislative session. Why is it important, from your point of view, to make sure that we continue to address that income tax rate and get Idaho as low as possible?
Idaho revenues are historic right now. They are, I mean, I know the last couple of months we have been under our revenue forecast, but if you look at our actuals year over year, we're at 15.9% over last year, and last year was historic. So, and I get that inflated dollars don't go as far, but nonetheless, the surplus and the revenue that's coming into the state right now is really unprecedented, and that's the citizens' money. And I'm a limited government fan, right along with your motto for your organization as well. And so I think it's really important to return to the citizens their funds, and only keep what's necessary to maintain a limited government.
The education spending, of course, was the other piece of that extraordinary session, the $400 million more that is going to be going to K through 12. There's a little bit of criticism about that, about whether we were just giving in to the folks who were pushing the Quality Education Act. But at the same time, what the legislature did was they made it so that the next legislature that starts in January can decide how it's going to allocate and spend that money.
Mm-hmm. Correct. And I think sometimes people don't realize that the legislature appropriated almost $260 million only for K-12 last session. Higher education was on top of that. And so 260 and 330, there's some space there, but it's not an extraordinary amount. And so I think some people who think this was completely to stop the initiative don't realize that the Idaho legislature has been committed and is still committed to properly funding Idaho education in this state. And our work for the last several years on the career ladder and teacher salaries, all of these things, the actual amounts kind of defy some of the rhetoric, frankly, in this space. And so we need a new funding formula. Certainly insurance, school choice is certainly going to be on the table. So I think there are ways to put those funds to good use, and that's why I ultimately ended up supporting it.
Talking with State Representative Wendy Horman of the Idaho Falls area here on Peak Policy. Thank you very much for joining us. Representative Horman, before we get back into education, I want to touch on a little bit of the process associated with calling the special session, because that is one of the ballot measures that people are going to be considering here in a few weeks. What are your thoughts about whether the legislature should have a role in being able to call itself into special session or extraordinary sessions versus only the governor doing that?
Mm-hmm. Definitely in support of the legislature being able to call itself back into session when the work of the people needs to be done. I'm a political science major, so a big fan of the checks and balances and separation of powers that our wonderful federal system has. But we can't exercise those powers if we can't get back in there to do the business that the people have asked us to do. Certainly the COVID pandemic was the most recent example of people asking us to come back and help them and not being able to do that. So I'm a big fan. I don't think it will be abused. I don't think there will be anywhere close to being a full-time legislature. And I don't know if people know, but obviously, what is it, October? And I'm working today. And so a lot of us do work year round. We just might not be in Boise. But so I think that's a red herring. I don't think that will happen.
Well, and in the other states, I mean, the majority of the other states have a mechanism whereby the legislature can call itself into special session. And I have to be frank, I haven't seen another state take advantage of that or become a full-time legislature as a result of that. And if the Idaho legislature does that, then there is a mechanism whereby citizens could hold the legislature accountable too. We have more research on that topic, by the way, on mountainstatespolicy.org. Okay, let me skip back to the education funding piece, because you mentioned school choice. We were talking about the funding that's out there, how much the legislature has put in. And I went back and looked at budgets all the way to 2016, I think it was. And there's been a remarkable increase in education funding in the state of Idaho. I think the question becomes, and I know you believe this as well, is it actually getting to the classroom? Is it doing what we need it to do to improve education outcomes? And in many other states, we have not seen an increase in education funding do that. So what can the legislature do to try to make sure that we have some sort of impact in the classroom and that we have an impact on educational outcomes for students?
That's a great question and a real problem. When I came on to serving on the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee, one of the things that I started that had not previously been done, you might remember Governor Otter's task force that had this list of all these things that we needed to do and all these investments we needed to make. What we didn't have was evaluations associated with those. So the Joint Finance and Appropriation Committee started including funding to go out and get external evaluations done, independent third-party ones, so that we could get some sense of if these investments were working. We still don't have great data around how to do that. So it's very difficult right now in Idaho to analyze what's working. Frankly, we have seen, our SAT scores remain flat. We've seen graduation remain flat. We were promised when we passed the career ladder that this was going to help with recruitment and retention of teachers. Almost $1 billion later, and our retention is about the same. It's varied by 0.5% or 1% here or there, but we're pretty much back to where we were when we started the career ladder. And so that's always one of the things I'm looking at, but frankly, it's very difficult to do.
Yeah, it certainly is. And you mentioned earlier the notion of school choice or trying to get some sort of choice options or more options in the system. We've seen what Arizona and some of the other states have done with school choice. Obviously, it's going to have to be an Idaho solution to this. It's going to have to be a very creative solution because of the constitutional issues and the possibility of a lawsuit, and maybe even the possibility of disagreement with the executive branch as well. Have you thought about different ways that this could go about being pushed through, so we can give parents and families more options?
Oh, have I ever? And I think that's actually one of the good things that has come about from this known amount of money kind of circulating out there. I think it's been spent 10 times from all the people who have called me and talked to me about their ideas for, education and specifically school choice. There are a lot of good ideas floating around out there. This is a space I've worked in and supported all 10 years I've been in the legislature. I'm a mother of 5 children, and the system didn't always work for my kids. So we've done charter, we've done homeschool, we've done online, we've done public. I was on the Bonneville School Board here locally for 11 years before I came to the legislature. So happy to support kids anywhere they're learning. They're all Idaho's children, and I think Idaho will be better off supporting them wherever they learn. So there's some great ideas floating around out there. Senator Dan Hartog and I were successful in moving a bill in the 2021 session that had a limited ESA in it. It was for about 800 students. We did get that out of the House, but failed by just a vote or two in the Senate. We came back last year working with the governor on empowering parents, the mini grants. So I think, again, people will be back with their ideas, and the good ones will rise to the top and hopefully be supported by Governor Little.
And we'll be putting out a few ideas as well in the coming weeks as we head toward the legislative session. In our remaining time here this afternoon with Representative Wendy Horman. Representative, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of give us a preview or a prediction, I guess, on the next legislative session. What you think is going to happen? What are going to be some of the top issues that are going to be out there? And will you guys be able to get done on time, or are you going to have to extend it to a special session? That's always the big question that's out there as well.
That is always the big question. Some states have mandated times that they can be in session. Idaho is not one of those. We go home when the work's done. And so we'll see. Hopefully by end of March, early April, again, we'll finish the people's work, but we do need to stay until we're done. And so certainly some of the things going into the session, we know that property taxes are a major concern. I hope that some of those rebates will be put to good use to help pay for property taxes. I know that's how we intend to use ours, is to help with those property taxes. So monitoring economic conditions, they're again coming back to this recession problem. Some think we're already in, some think we're headed there. Wikipedia keeps changing its definition of a recession. But the bottom line is families are struggling. Their dollars are not going as far as they once did. And I think, especially given the amount of revenue coming in, we need to take a hard look at that. So one of the ideas that I will be bringing to session is a new funding formula that's based on students and not the system. Ours is almost 30 years old, and part of that will have a piece of property tax relief in it for supplemental levies. So monitoring those economic conditions, new funding formula, helping students be successful. Certainly abortion is going to be a topic of conversation. So I think we have some big problems ahead of us that we can solve.
Well, I just want to say thank you very much for your service. Thank you for being with us today. Good luck in the session. Hopefully you'll be able to be back home in district, as you mentioned, end of March, beginning of April, and it won't stretch on too long. But Representative Wendy Horman of the Idaho Falls area, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it.
Great to be with you, Chris. Thanks.
Thanks to Representative Horman. If you've missed any of our other programs, you can go on to YouTube and to our Facebook or Twitter channels. We've got them logged there for you as well. We're going to take a short break and then come back to talk about our spring dinner here at Mountain States Policy Center in just a moment. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I'm an assistant to help you prevent wildfires.
Dude, I've got this. I've been camping since I was 5 years old.
But I am a camping influencer.
You know what? I'll bet you $5. Okay. Assistant Smokey, what is the best way to put out a campfire?
To put out a campfire, drown with water, stir, drown again. Then make sure the fire is out cold by feeling with the back of your hand.
Wait, really?
I'll take the $5.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here. But you probably won't. You're busy. Kids, work, show coming back in 48 seconds. So let's do this now. Hold up one finger if you're a man, women, 0. 3 more fingers if you're over 60, 2 over 50, 1 over 40. If you're not sure, keep in mind you're sitting on a couch right now, so 1 more finger if you're not very active. 1 finger if yes, 0 if no. 1 yes, 0 no. Next, find the body type that looks most like you and hold up that many fingers while I look around awkwardly. And that's it. If you're holding up 5 fingers or more, you probably have prediabetes. Sorry to be so blunt, but hey, you're busy. Just go to the site.
Well, welcome back here to Peak Policy on this Thursday. We appreciate you being with us. And again, many thanks to Representative Wendy Horman of the Idaho Falls area for joining us today. Want to make sure everyone is aware, and if you did not see the news, here is the news that Trey Gowdy will be our keynote speaker at our spring dinner event, which will be in Coeur d'Alene on Friday, April 28th. We will be doing a spring dinner event in Coeur d'Alene each year and a fall dinner event in Boise each year. But the spring one is scheduled Friday, April 28th with Congressman or former Congressman Trey Gowdy. We're looking forward to his presentation. If you want tickets, get on to mountainstatespolicy.org. mountainstatespolicy.org, and the Coeur d'Alene Inn is also offering a room block for those coming in from out of town. But you can get your tickets now on mountainstatespolicy.org. We are very grateful to all of our guests here in our first couple of weeks at Mountain States Policy Center. Our program is taking off, and we appreciate everyone watching on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Thanks very much for being here, and we will see you at the next program.
Thanks for watching Mountain States Policy Center. To stay up to date on the work of MSPC, visit mountainstatespolicy.org or find us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Mountain States Policy Center. Free markets first.